I love me some Jack Graham. Give him a hand, ain't he awesome? And if that music don't set your wood on fire, it's just pure tea wet. That's all there is to it. I told the folks back at my home church, I didn't believe there was a church anywhere in America that could have music better than my home church. Then I came here. I said, boys, y'all moved into a distant second. First thing you'll notice about Michael Dean Chadwick, a.k.a. the Big Dad, is he is got a drinking problem. It runs in the family. Several years ago, I had a tumor cut out of my throat, and they took my spit glands with me. This bugs my wife when I say this. If I wanted to spit on y'all, I'd have to give you 5 minutes notice while I worked one up. So sometimes I just got to stop and take a drink, and don't let it bother you. It don't bother me. But I'm grateful to be here with you this morning. I want to share a little bit of my journey and my wife's journey, our family's journey, and I'm going to share a little bit from the Bible out of Luke when we talk about the prodigal son this morning. But Pastor Jack said something a few minutes ago that just really resonated in my heart, and I just want to reiterate it. I have met a lot of good men since I've been at Prestonwood, and I tell you, you guys have it going on here, and you need to be proud of that God is using you all in a powerful way to affect this community. It is an awesome thing to see God move into a place and get a hold of men and energize men. Because I believe with all my heart that if God gets the man, God gets the family. If God gets the family, God gets the neighborhood. If God gets the neighborhood, God gets the community. If God gets the community, he gets the county. Then he gets the state. Then he gets the country. But I believe it starts with the man. And so I want you to know that we're going to go after men today that really want to just take it to the next level. I mean, just want to step it up just a little bit. Now, I am not a preacher, so I don't have to follow preacher's rules. I'm just a regular guy that somehow ended up on the platform at Prestonwood Baptist Church. Somebody said, how did that happen? I said, well, near as I can tell, God got to the bottom of the barrel and rolled it over, and there I was. Now, you have heard Pastor Jack talk about those I Believe shirts. Now, that's my daughter, Kelly, and I need all y'all to go out there because while he said that it says John 3:16, what it really says is I believe if y'all don't buy them shirts, Big Daddy has no retirement program. And it's awesome to have my daughter, Kelly, and my daughter, Krista, working on that program. She's been a great kid, except she married a Yankee. And I remember when they were dating and kind of getting serious, and Janice said, you need to go out and talk to him. I said, you mean Joff, the one that can't even pronounce his own name? You mean Jeff? She said, honey, you know his name is Joff. Now get out there. I went out and I said, hi, Joff. I said, let me ask you a question, Joff. How do you plan on paying for grad school and things like that? He said, Big Dad, don't you worry about that. God's going to provide. Okay. I said, what about the car payment, insurance, gas, stuff like that? Big Dad, don't worry. God's going to provide. I said, okay, fool, I've seen how much you can eat. He's a hockey player from Penn State. I mean, he's a big boy. He said, Big Dad, I want you to know that God will provide. I went back in the kitchen, and Janice said, how did your talk go with Joff? I said, it went good, honey. I like that boy. He thinks I'm God. I am thrilled to have my wife here today. She is my best buddy, and I have missed her this weekend. She's been a real warrior. She has been literally night and day and night for the last 3 days, either at a hospital or taking care of the kids. Josh and Katie were both in the hospital. I haven't even been able to go over to the house, and then they got them home last night finally and turned around and had to take the baby back to the hospital. And honey, I have missed you, and I am glad you're here, and I love you very much. But there's still some things you need to work on. In the book of Luke, if you have your Bibles with you this morning, don't worry, you don't need them. Don't panic, you don't need them. I'm not going to use mine, no need for you to use yours. You might find out what I'm saying is not in there. There's a story about a man who is fairly well off, evidently, and his young son says to him, Daddy, I want half of everything that belongs to me because I'm going to the far country. Guys, I want to tell you something. You get off in the far country, nothing good is going to happen in the far country. And I sensed this dad's heart was like, man, son, are you sure this is what you want to do? Are you serious about this thing? He said, Daddy, give me half of what's mine. I'm going. And so the young man packs up his stuff, gets his money, and he becomes the talk of the town in the far country. He is it. He's got women, he's got buddies, he's got camels, he's got it all going on until one day it starts to dwindle down and he finds out that everything he has is run off and run out and he's all by himself. And he ends up eating with the pigs, which is so disgusting and disgraceful for a Jew to be down there eating with a pig. And he said, you know what? This just isn't any good. My daddy's got food to fill up a barrel. I'm going home and I'm going to tell Daddy I'm sorry, and maybe he'll give me a job and give me something to eat, but I'm going home. You know, I can imagine that every day that dad would get up in the morning. I envision this long, white split rail fence lined with trees. I can envision him standing out there and looking down that long road every day, wondering if today's the day my boy's coming home. Then one day, off in the distance, you see the little cloud of smoke. And he begins to look. And he begins to look, and he says, can it be? Can it be? It's my boy coming home. Can it be? And the closer he gets, that old daddy, he grabs up his little dress tunic thing, and back in those days, a man just didn't do this stuff here. I mean, he girded it all up, and he began to run to his son. He saw him coming, and he began to run hard, and he began to run fast because he knew his boy was coming home. There's something exciting about knowing that you're coming home and you're welcomed with arms like this, and that's the way Jesus is. His arms are like this when you want to come home. A lot of times you get to where in life you just don't feel like you can just get there. You don't know how to get there. You're not even sure if you really can get there. But he's standing there like this, and he's looking down the trail, and he wants you to come home. And he's sitting there going, come on home. I remember years ago, Janice and I was a bartender. My wife was on a date with my roommate. They were going out to dinner. Bartender, after he gets done working, he goes to breakfast. He was taking her to breakfast. I said to her, would you mind coming over and having lunch with me? She said, do what? Do you do this to all of David's dates? I said, all that say yes. And she came over that day, and we went out. We were getting ready to go out to lunch, and she's walking to me, and I'm walking to her, and she's walking to me, and I'm walking to her, and I'm sitting there, and we get up next to her, and I said, I'm so glad you came. On account of you and I are getting married. She starts backing up. And I said, wait a minute. I said, would you marry me? Now she's in a full trot running back for her car. I called up with her and I said, wait a minute. I think that you think that I'm going a little bit fast. What's your name? I promise you that's a true story. And I knew when I saw her, I was going to marry this woman. I decided I wanted to get married. Some of my buddies have gotten married. I wanted to get married. Now, I thought that I would sign up for 5 years. I thought that was a pretty good length of time to be married. I'd never done anything for 5 years in my life anyway. So 5 years, I'd sign up for that. I never had any idea that she took it seriously. None whatsoever. But I grew up, Lord forgive me for this. I grew up in the Taliban Baptist Church. I mean, everything we did there was wrong. I mean, good night. It was just but one of the things that they beat into my head from a little teeny boy was don't ever marry someone that isn't a believer. Or they would say, don't marry somebody and become unequally yoked. I wasn't really sure what was going to happen to me, but I knew if you did, something was going to come out of the sky and zap me. I was scared to death. But now my wife, when she grew up in a wonderful family, but God was just never really much of a part of her family. They weren't anti-God, but they weren't pro-God. And so I'm stuck in this dilemma. I said, come on, honey, get in the car. We're going for a ride. And I took her over to some friends of mine, Barbara and Larry Brunson, wonderful people. She goes, who are these folks? I said, just come on with me. We walked in the door, and Barbara was standing there in her apron. Hey, Michael, Dean, how are you? I said, Barbara, this is Janice. She needs to be saved. I'll be back in about an hour. And I threw her in the door, and I took off. Now, I came back about an hour, hour and a half later, and she was crying, and Janice was crying. That's always a good sign. And I said, did you get saved? And she said, well, I asked Jesus into my heart. I said, oh, that's great. I said, we never have to talk about this again. I misjudged her taking marriage seriously, and I certainly misjudged her relationship with Jesus. Two big mistakes on my part. We got married and started a family, and I was a hateful man. I was a bad husband. I was a good provider, but that was the only A I got. I got an F in every other category. And I just was not a good person. But she just kept praying for her husband, that God would do something in his life. And eventually, through a course of events, I had some things happen in my life in a very short period of time. And I knew that God was saying, you either get it together, or I'm going to really deal with you. Things like, on a beautiful day like today, driving down a road and a 22-inch oak tree blows over on your truck and crushes it from bumper to bumper, and your daughter should have been in the truck with you, and it goes through the roof and through the seat and through the floorboard and into the asphalt, and she should have been in there. Had she have been in there, it would have killed her for sure. So finally, I decided, God, I get it. I told my wife, I said, honey, I'm coming to church with you today. I said, I want you to know God's got my attention. I'm going to be a different man. Now, this is the same guy that had been pronounced dead several times since we've been married from various things and the sundry things that he shouldn't have been doing from start with. And she said, that's nice. She's a wicked woman. Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Oh, she looks real pretty, but I'm telling you the truth now. And then she's noticed that I went to church on Sunday, and then I went the next Sunday, and then I went the next Sunday, and little by little she started to see this change in her husband. And then one day I had to go to her, and I said, honey, I lost the house today on account of this Christian life I'm living. It's getting in the way of this other stuff that I used to do and supplement my income, and we can't live here anymore. It was so strange because she said, honey, I don't care about this house. I care about you. You're all I ever wanted. So we packed up and moved to our first rental home. And we sat in that rental home for a while, and we began to work and go get involved in the church.